Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Angel and today I'm going to be sharing with you some more fun and simple DIYs. Before we get started, don't forget if you enjoy this video, give it a big thumbs up, and if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel and click on that little notification bell so that you won't miss out on any of my future videos.
For this first project, I'm just going to be using this little sign that I found at Dollar Tree. As you can see here, it had a little galvanized dreaming sign on top of it. And I went ahead and took that off, and then I tried to sand it down because my original plan was to paint over this. But you'll be able to see that didn't really work out because you were still able to see where I had tore the little dreaming sign off of here. So I decided to go a different route, and I'm just going to be using some white cardstock and also some of this wrapping paper that I had from last Christmas. So all I'm doing here is just pressing down my paper to kind of get the triangle shape, to know where I need to cut down my wrapping paper, and then I'm going to cut this down and just Mod Podge it on top of my little sign. And of course, as always, you can use any colors that you like that go with your style and your decor for this Christmas. For the other side, I'm just repeating that whole process, but with my white cardstock. For this sign, I'll also be using this galvanized joy sign that I got from Dollar Tree, and also these Crafter Square laser cut stars. If you can't find these at your local Dollar Tree, you can of course just use the wood stars that they have out right now for Christmas. Now for the bottom piece, I just took this little piece of wood that came out of the little race car kit that I got from Dollar Tree. If you watched my last video, I used that to make my little Christmas tree stand-up signs. And this little piece was in there, so I went ahead and painted it white, and then I'm just going to use that for a stand for my little sign. And here's a look at how the sign turned out. For my next project, I'll just be using these wicker plate holders. You can usually find these at a thrift store, but I already had these on hand and I thought I would just give them a little makeover for Christmas. The first thing I did was just trace out and cut out this little Christmas tree on some cardstock to use as my template because I am actually not very good at drawing. And I just took my little paint pen that I got from Dollar Tree and marked around, and then I'm going to fill this in with my white Waverly chalk paint. And I did just go ahead and make 2 of these with the Christmas trees. For my other 2 wicker plate holders, I wanted to do snowflakes, so I just went ahead and freehand those. Now I do plan on hanging these on my dining room wall, but of course you could just sit these out on a table or anywhere else in your house as well. And here's a look at how they turned out. For my next project, I wanted to make one of those snowman globes that I've been seeing all over Pinterest. So I just got a glass fishbowl from Dollar Tree and also this little snowman hat ornament. Now the first thing I did was just take that snowman hat all apart and take that bottom piece off because it didn't quite cover the top of the fishbowl. So I just went ahead and cut out my own little piece out of some cardboard that I had to make the bottom of the hat. Then to cover the bottom piece and also the top piece of the hat, I'm just using some black felt that I got from Dollar Tree, and then I just used my hot glue gun to cover both pieces. And I did decide to go ahead and put the little stuff back onto my hat. You can, of course, change that up if you'd like. I'll also just be using some of this fake snow for down inside of the fish bowl. For the little ornaments, I'm just using these little Christmas trees and also this little Santa and snowman that I also got from Dollar Tree. Now I also wanted to add some little lights to this, so all I did was just take my scissors and cut a hole in the center of the hat, and then I just pushed in some of these Dollar Tree lights. And here's a look at how it turned out. For my next project, I'll just be using these poster boards that I got from Dollar Tree, and we're just going to roll those up into little cone shapes to make some Christmas trees. Now, I went ahead and made 3 of these, and I decided to make them in different shapes and sizes. Once I had them all made, I just went ahead and cut that bottom piece off of each one of them, just so they can stand up. Now to cover my Christmas trees, I'm just going to be using this old sweater that I already had. I had planned on getting rid of it, so I figured I would just use it to make my Christmas trees. And these were really easy to make. All I did was just cut my sweater down to make sure it would fit around the cone, and then I start hot gluing this together. The most important part is probably just making sure that your seam lines up in the back. And also, as you start making your way to the top, you will probably have to trim down some of that sweater. So for 2 of these, I used the sleeves, and then for this last one, I ended up using the collar, which was kind of a different pattern. Now, I also want to say a huge thank you to Joan Hawkins, who in my other video with my little snowman stuffies let me know that Dollar Tree does carry buttons, and this past week I was able to find some. So even though I made these Christmas trees a few weeks ago, I went back in and added some of those cute little buttons to one of my Christmas trees. And here's a final look at how they turned out. For this next project, I'll just be using one of these wood Christmas trees from Dollar Tree. Also, this piece that came out of my wood shop race car kit that I've used in a previous video. And then also this Xmas little sign. This came with one of the DIY craft kits from Dollar Tree. And then I'll also just be using this little snowflake sticker that also came from Dollar Tree. For the numbers for this little sign, I'll just be using these stickers that I also got from Dollar Tree. The first thing I wanted to do was just paint my Christmas tree, so I'm just using some white Waverly chalk paint to do that. Now, before I start putting my numbers on, I went ahead and hot glued down where I wanted that little Xmas sign, and I wanted it to fit right on top of this little block that I'm going to use for a stand. And I also went ahead and hot glued a little wood star from Dollar Tree to the top of it. Then just using one of my rulers, I just started spacing out my numbers, and I think I put them about an inch apart, and I kind of had a little draft over to the side that you can see there, but I didn't do it exactly like that. But I did like the way that it turned out. And then for the 24th and the 25th of December, I decided to use these other stickers that I also got from Dollar Tree, just to make them stand out a little. Then the last thing that I had to do was I just hot glued my little Christmas tree down into that wood block that I was using for a stand. And then I'll just be using that little snowflake sticker to move around for the date. And here's a final look at how it turned out. For my final project, I'll just be using these wooden Christmas trees that I got from Dollar Tree, as well as this piece of craft wood that I found in the craft section. I'm also going to be using the remnants from that sweater that we used in the previous project with the Christmas trees. So for the first one, I went ahead and I hot glued my sweater down to the wood Christmas tree without cutting the shape out first. And that was kind of a mistake because you'll be able to see here in a minute, I kind of struggle with trimming this down. There's a little lip on these wood Christmas trees, and it kind of just made it difficult for me to get my scissors in there to cut this down. So you'll be able to see in the next two, I go ahead and I trace the trees out on the sweater before gluing them down. So you can see here, I went ahead and traced out both of those onto my sweater before I cut them out and glued them down. I also went ahead and I used the sleeve parts for two of them. And again, just like I did with the poster Christmas trees, I used the neck part for one of them just to get a little bit of different texture on these Christmas trees. Then finally, the last part was just gluing these Christmas trees to my little wood piece, and that's going to be the little stand for these. Now I went ahead and I hot glued these down, but you'll see I'm also going to be using some of those little Jenga blocks to put in the back of them, and I will be using some wood glue for that, just to make sure that these do stay up. And here's a final look at how they turned out. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.